Hassan, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Sorry, I was just taking a picture of that screen. Off. Hold on.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you, mate. Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem.
On this beautiful Sunday morning.
I know, it's like you can't see because it's all dark in here, but it's lovely outside. So you mainly specialize in like the psychotherapy and like addiction specialist. You have quite a broad area of expertise when I was sort of like doing some research on you. So it's like sex and porn addiction, addiction in general.
Mm-hmm.
What else was there?
I thought you said you did your research.
I know. It's right next to me as well. I'm trying not to look at it.
It's Sunday morning. No, I
Performance coach, that was the one.
Yeah, I trained as a psychotherapist a long time ago, but my specialist area is addiction.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to learn, so I work with people with anxiety, depression, generalized counseling, couples, all that kind of thing. But my specialist area is addiction because I've worked in that area for a long time. And then I trained as a sex and a sex addiction counsellor and psychotherapist as my last add-on. So that's working with mainly sex addiction and compulsive behaviour. So looking at a lot of attachment, trauma, and opportunity based around sex and porn addiction specifically.
Yeah.
Because you can't really treat all addiction the same. Although addiction is addiction, you can't always treat addiction as addiction. As addiction for all of it. There are different modalities that you'll use and different, you work with a gambler in a different way to you would say someone who's addicted to food or someone that's like social media as opposed to someone who's using heroin. So there are different components, but fundamentally you're dealing with the overriding obsessive thought to change the way that you feel. So you're working with that addiction. So I kind of work in those sort of areas really and worked. So I've always kind of worked. So I went to night school to get my qualification. So I've always worked in community drug and alcohol services, community, prison services in the courts, sort of voluntary sort of services for like mind, mental health and places like that. And then worked in private treatment and obviously now the NHS. So I sort of did that alongside, and I didn't really want to focus on one or the other. I wanted to keep both going, really. I think the more I work in these services, I'm in operations at the moment, so you don't do any client-facing work. I'd miss the patient-facing, I'd miss the client-facing work. So I like to run the both, really. So I have my own practice, which is where, the psychotherapy element comes out mainly with people, all different walks of life, and it's a really exciting line of work to work in, really.
What drew you to like the field of addiction?
It was a bit like what you were saying. You went through. I asked you why you started a podcast, and then you said, "Well, had my own battles, went for my own bits and pieces, got myself better." And I thought, right, how can I? And that's pretty much what happened to me, really. This year I'll be 18 years clean, and I fell into it really. I didn't really. To do a job of helping people, the old me was about what I can get from people, not what you can, give to people. So I kind of fell into it, I think. And it wasn't until I got clean that I realised that I needed to get out of Southend, where I was from. And I started working for Talk to Frank, the drug and alcohol awareness. I was working in the nightclub industry before then and other sales jobs before then. And sort of fell into kind of working this Talk to Frank. I was giving out leaflets basically, and I felt like a right loser. These were like out of work, sort of young aspiring actors and musicians, and I felt like a granddad, at 24, giving out these leaflets and like Breathe Right nose strips and Ribena and all that kind of stuff. And this one was the same. And I kind of thought that everybody at the interview was maybe in recovery because it was a very drug and alcohol focused, the drug strategy from the Home Office. And then I realised quite soon afterwards in the interview that they weren't in recovery. So I made this poor lady cry in the corner. This other man had his mouth wide open, like, I don't know if he was ashamed or sort of like disgusted. I don't know. And so I sort of melted inside and thought, I've overshared. Like, how can I lock this down? And then they called me 20 minutes later and said, look, you're exactly what we need. So I was like, great. So we went around on a Route Master bus around all the schools, giving out leaflets to the youth. And I kind of got a bit bored of that because I just thought, well, these are young people. These are our future. We need to talk to them, really. We need to sort of see what they know. And so I kind of started creating forums and kind of platforms to explore and have good conversation. And after I did that for a while, the Home Office asked me what I'd suggest for the next tour. And I was like, wow, here we are. We've got people asking me what I think. So I did that for about 3 or 4 years, and I met loads of youth workers. And I said, how do you do what you do? You know, it become like attractive what they were doing. And so he said, you need to go to like drug and alcohol services and maybe volunteer. And I don't really want to volunteer. I'm ready to work. So I went for an interview, and they said, didn't have any places. And luckily for me, the lady was afraid of blood, and she freaked out on her day one. So thank you to that person, wherever you are. And they called me up and said, look, can you come in for another interview? I said, yeah, of course. So I came in, and they took a punt. You know, I had no experience apart from my own lived experience with my own journey. And they taught me a lot. You know, I was running a needle exchange. I was a project worker for volunteers and learned to be a key worker, and just went through the whole element through it, really. And it was just a real eye-opener because, of course, every 3 years your contract would be up and someone else would tender for it. And I worked with lots of different people and worked with some amazing mental health nurses and CPNs, they were called then, you know, community psychiatric nurse, and learned how to do a risk assessment, you know, from a proper nurse perspective, you know, from a mental health nurse perspective. And it was just fascinating. So, yeah, I mean, that was the start of it, really. And sort of, yeah, just went through every single area I could in the community because I was like a sponge by that point. I was like a sponge. And then I got to a point where I was so frustrated with the way statutory services were going. And someone said, well, stop moaning and go and train and be a therapist. And I thought, that's a really good idea. So that's exactly how what I did. And then I got into leadership, into management, and to sort of help support the staff. You know, I really wanted to do that because I had some really good managers, but I had some really shit managers. And someone said, again, stop moaning and fucking apply. And I was like, okay, I will. And, you know, I made all the mistakes you can imagine, mate. All the mistakes. You know, right, Mr. Hassan, we're back here again. Seem to have, all right, okay. Boundaries, had to learn boundaries. Not answering your phone in supervision, you know, that kind of stuff, really. And I learned the hard way, but really good learning. People took a real chance on me, and I was really grateful for that. And so I ran both at the same time, you know, going to night school and doing my placement and working, and it was really, really good fun, actually.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that a minute, like it's quite a big milestone, like coming up 18 years sober.
Yeah.
What sort of do you feel looking back now on that, seeing like 18 years sober?
What do I feel looking back? Many things. This is a long time when I think back, and I think that's the other thing is not to be complacent about that, you know. And I don't believe people should be put on pedestals the longer. You know, I've met people like 30 years. You know, I asked this one guy who was like 40 years, and he said to me, I said, "I've got any advice?" He said, "Yeah, the first 40 years are the worst." I was just like, right, okay, I'll have to get there, and you know, it was like, being away from it all is just being away from it all. It's about your quality of life, whatever changes you make in your life. And so I never really concentrate too much. You know, I recognize that it's been that length of time, but everything's new. You know, I've become a dad in recovery. I've got married in recovery. I've learned to become a productive member of society in recovery. And these are all new things. So I guess what I've learned is to really hold on to what I value the most. You know, I wasn't really accountable then. I didn't feel like I was accountable then, you know, and I think I feel more like a grown up, more like a man, dare I say it now. I've grown up. And so I guess it's to value what's really, really important. And what's really important to me is my family. It's my mental health first, so I can be of service to my family. And so my priorities have changed and I've sort of settled. And I guess the thing I've also learned is that I really believe in myself more and to trust that. And when things aren't going the way I want it to go, knowing when to still push and plow forward and when to maybe review, that's better. I wouldn't say I've got that cracked, but it's definitely better. So I think sometimes my thinking can be trusted.
Well, I've had people say this to me when I've had people come to me about mental health, and I'm like saying, like, I can give you like all the advice, but at the end of the day, it's you making that decision that you want to sort of get better. So for you, what was that point where you're like, I've got a problem here, like I need help?
I think I always knew I had a problem. I was about 19 at the time, and I guess I was too ashamed, too afraid to actually voice that to sort of people in my life. So I was found out, really, and I was quite relieved about that. So my parents, at the time, because I was young, I was like 24 when I came to recovery, and they sort of gave me a mini intervention in the kitchen, and I was kind of relieved. I just thought, wow, I ain't got to live a double life anymore. This is done. Like, shape up or ship out.
Was it very much like your social group as well?
They ought to go. All of that was really a grieving process on that. That was difficult. I had to grieve that whole process. That whole, everyone's having a better time than me. What am I going to be doing with myself now? Is this it? Is this what it's come to? It was really hard work in the beginning. And weekends were a massive trigger for me. Because for me, once I got structure and discipline, it's okay. And sort of getting up Monday to Friday, working, felt all right. It would be the evening, my head would talk, or the weekends when everyone was out, and I tried it, carried on going out with the guys, and it was just horrible. I was not on the outside looking in. And then I questioned some of those relationships, and actually, what did I really have in common with these guys, and what did they have in common with me? And I think a lot of it, sadly, was to do with the drink and the drugs. And actually, as a person, and I know that because I didn't hear from them when I stopped, which made me really sad. And it made me think there was something wrong with me. And that took a while. And I don't think it was that they didn't value me as a friend. I think a lot of those particular groups, it would be too exposing of their issues. So it's far easier just to bury your head in the sand and say, you weren't that bad, you're all right. I might see some of them on hard days and holidays, but the relationship is skin deep. It's not deep. There's only a couple from them that, one that used to always ring me, Rob. He always used to ring me, my mate Rob. And which is really weird to call him Rob, actually. I've never called him Rob. His name Wally. I always used to call him Wally. That's his name. And big shout out to Rob Wall. And he'd ring me up and give me a heads up. So, by the way, there's going to be that at the party, or there's going to be this there, or that person's going to be there. So I was able to then review whether or not I go. And I really appreciate that. And we're still in each other's lives very much today. So although I felt at that time quite lonely and isolated, I realised that I was worth more than that. And if those, they were good times. And the relationship, what it is, people aren't in your life forever. It's not a bad thing. I had a really good time with some of them. And okay, some of those people are never going to be best buddies for the rest of your life. All right, and I'm sure I'm not going to be that for everybody else, as well. So, but then you make new friends. And that's where we run into that wall. Now, if I continued in that thought process, then I am going to feel isolated. But actually, I felt my value and my worth. And then I reached out, and then my activities changed, my behaviours changed, the way I navigate through life changed. So therefore, you're going to meet other people. And I love it. I love meeting new people and making new connections and having some long-lasting ones. And now I really, truly believe that not everyone's in your life forever. They might be in for a moment. They might be to teach you something. It might be it's just a little bit of fun. And it was what it was in that moment. And that's okay too. It's not all or nothing. It can't be everyone's got to be your best mate or you got no one. There are acquaintances.
Yeah.
That there are work connections. There are people that you see that you know of, but they're not involved in your life. And I think really for me to review friendships, it's people who are really invested in your life, people who are invested, who actually care, not the ones that are going to be on the phone and celebrate with you, the ones when you're in the shit and you need the help, they're the ones.
Yeah.
So really true friends are on one hand. That's what I believe.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you're always going through the shit, who the real ones are. And I used to have a lot of friends. I had a massive friend group, and I have one best mate now. And that's it. It's just me and him.
So
And like when you start going through the shit, everyone just drops like flies, and then you're left with like one or two good ones who do stick around.
And they're the ones that are worth keeping, and investing back. And I think COVID lockdown revealed even more so. It culled a lot of people's relationships even more so, didn't it? And certainly for me, I started to realise and reevaluate because I think as well, when you get a full life, you don't have time. We're not teenagers anymore.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not a teenager anymore. I'm 43 years of age. I'm a dad. You know, I'm a cab driver a lot of the time, you know, so I don't have that time to be having bro night every day. You know, it's just, there isn't that time. Now you might say, well, you got to make time, but actually priorities change, and, you know, things, you can't be in everyone's life all of the time. And I think real friends know that. You know, I've got a good mate, Liam, who lives in Bristol now, and we were really close, and he's a family man now. So when we speak, we value the time we speak with each other, but we don't get resentful or upset that we're not speaking to each other every day. And I think that's the test of time, isn't it, of relationships, I believe. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, again, like with me and my best mate, Jamie, like we can go like weeks and weeks without talking, and we drop a message, I like fancy meeting up later. Yeah, cool. It's not like
absolutely,
on top of each other. We've all got our own lives to live, but we're always aware of the other one is there, and like whenever either of us are in the shit, we're first person they're calling. So 100%. That's a good relationship.
Yeah, I think
in my eyes. And sort of going back to like when you were sort of fighting with your addiction, and sort of like, was it like 19, around about that?
Yeah.
What were you doing at that time? Like in terms of like, were you like working or at college or at uni?
I was at college. I was working for my dad, and then he fired me for turning up under the influence of alcohol all the time. I was working in the Wimpy then, and I didn't want to miss out. So I was always quick pint, and then it would turn into quick 2 pints, 3 pints, and then go to work. And it was just, so that didn't work. Is to go and see what it's like to work for other people. And, you know, you'll realize I'm not that bad. And he was absolutely right. He was absolutely right, you know. So I was at college studying media and performing arts, and, you know, I was trying to be a musician, actor, you know, had all these kind of things that I wanted to do in the creative space. But that pull to party was always there, and full to excess. And I think it made me doubt my ability at times. I think it compromised my abilities at auditions. I think it held me back. It kept me in this little bubble until it took everything away from me, any belief, and it increased self-doubt. And then in the end, it created, can't be bothered. So it was never going to work. So doing all of that and then working in the office, I just felt very lost. I just thought, there's nothing wrong with working in the office, but it wasn't for me. But I had no other idea what to do. I didn't really concentrate at school. I only focused on what I was interested in, and I didn't really apply myself. When I applied myself, I was, you know, really great. So I had no idea really. And I guess the nightclub industry was a real, you know, I just thought, well, I like going out, and if I can make money doing the same thing, that would be great. And actually it was great. You know, for a long time, it was really good. I can't say that was bad news. That was great news. I loved it. In fact, I actually cleaned up working in the nightclub industry, which I wouldn't suggest. It's very difficult to do. But, you know, I did. And I used to just lock myself in the alcohol cupboard in one of the clubs I used to manage, rocking with my eyes closed until I could feel more comfortable to come out and engage with people. Because, of course, sensory overload, people everywhere. And, you know, I open up banknotes to take cash, and there'd be like traces of drugs on it. You're like, oh, mate, you know, all of that. And the bar would be wet, and, you know, I've just become intolerant. I just thought, this isn't good for my spirit. You know, nothing wrong with those places. I love them places. But for someone going through it and trying desperately to stay away from it, it's really confronting, you know? It's like sitting in a barber's that you need a haircut, but not having a haircut. At some point, you're going to have that haircut, right? You can't, it's too much. Everyone's coming in and being all pristine and leaving you thinking, right, fuck it, cut my hair, you know?
Yeah.
So it was hard, but it's not impossible, but I had to get out of that. So that's kind of what was happening for me at that time.
Yeah, for me, I had a problem with alcohol.
Right.
And that stemmed from, I moved over to Australia, and it was, I was very much, I'd been working since 15, 16, and sort of I took a break to go out and work in Australia. I got offered a job, and I tore my rotator cuff basically, and it put me out of my job, which meant I was in the hostel all the time, and which led to drinking every day, which was clubbing every day, and being in that scene like constantly. Like for me, alcohol became like a coping thing. So drinking, just getting absolutely smashed every night was my way of just like hiding away.
Absolutely. Change the way that you feel, right?
Yeah. But it made you feel good at the time.
Right.
And then you would just be like, you'd feel shit in the morning, and like, do you know what? I'm gonna start drinking again because then it'll go away, and then it's just like a constant cycle. And I came back from Australia doing after a year out there, and I came back with quite a bad drinking problem from that. Like I had like the shakes, and
All right, you're dependent.
Yeah.
To do with wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So I went completely cold turkey when I decided like enough was enough. My best mate, his mum, like they love their wine, they like drinking, and she pulled me aside. I remember one day, and she was like, "Ollie, like you got a problem," like because she'll come downstairs and I'm like throwing up like, after drinking a liter of vodka, like throwing up in a bin, and then going out again and drinking even more, and it's just.
Well, you know it's bad when someone who likes to drink a lot. So
Yeah.
I think you've got a drink problem.
Yeah.
You know that it's really bad, right?
Yeah.
That's when you know, okay, I need to look at that. What's going on for me?
So I went cold turkey, and again, like, yeah, you got the shakes, and you're like speaking to people, and you like their hands are like, and people notice it as well.
Yeah, so you're borderline dependent,
Yeah,
which
it wasn't nice.
no.
I'm good now. Like I can go out and I can have a beer. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, I can go out and with my mate, and we can go out and drink, and I'm fine. But if you start going to like 2 days doing it, 3 days, then that old sort of like hook starts coming back out again. So I kind of get it with that. With drugs, on the other hand, I did a lot of psychedelics in my past. A lot of people.
I'm not surprised.
I know, a lot of people would say, "You look like the kind of guy."
Yes,
I'm
you
like,
do,
yes,
sir.
yes, I am.
Sorry, but
So I did a lot of psychedelics in the past. Stuff with like cocaine, I never really touched. Through that, like we're talking about like my industry, trees and stuff like that. It wasn't until I got in the industry at like 15, 16 to realize how prevalent it was. Like how many people are on it in the industry is crazy.
really,
Like the company I worked at, there were people, coming to work, doing it at work just to get through the day, just smashing gear in the day, then going home, locking themselves in their room, just smashing it all night, coming back in like half dead. And there was one guy, I remember we used to work with him a lot, and he was just like a shell of a person. And seeing him after like over a decade of use was like, I never want to touch that drug because like, I don't want to end up like that. And like even guys that work for me, they're like pretty hooked on it. And you can't do anything because they're not doing it at work or anything like that. It's their own time. You can like offer like words of wisdom, but it's up to them to listen to it.
of course, absolutely. And but you see, you gave a really good example around yourself, around how had that injury, got really unwell, and then used drink to make yourself feel better when you was in Australia. And so then it become like a habitual habit, right? So poor me, this is really sad, I'm feeling really low, drink more. So we drink a depressant, which makes us even more sad and even more low. And then we drink more. And now we're like, there's the physical, emotional, spiritual, all of it. And then you come back and realize, I haven't fixed up. I'm still on that merry-go-round. And so now we're trapped. So your fullest potential can't come out. You're just trapped in this cycle of bollocks. Yeah. It's just bollocks, isn't it, really? Of just limiting beliefs. There's no limitless beliefs in you. And well done you for being able to, change that. But then also being vigilant, So you've chosen to still have alcohol in your life, but recognize that your relationship with it at that time wasn't a healthy one. And so now you've reviewed that. And for some people, they can't go back to it. Me, I can't go back to it. I can't do controlled drinking. I can't enjoy one or two. It sets off the allergic reaction that says more. And I could be sitting there talking to you and all up my head is like that. And the only thing that's going to shut it up. And then it returns again. And I'm just like, oh my God. Until the chat's too loud, right? So that was my experience with it, my relationship with it, which wasn't a healthy one. So you're able to find that, because I don't think everybody who has an issue with alcohol becomes that term the alcoholic or an addict. I don't believe that. I think certain people can enter into moments in their life situations come up, and it's the coping mechanism to life. As you said, it's your coping mechanism, and it can be destructive. And sometimes when people recognize that, they can make those changes and move forward, and off they go again, and it's okay. What I learned is that it wasn't really the alcohol that was a problem or the drugs. It was a me problem. I had to change. I have an addictive personality. So when you find something like that, it just triples the fuel, doesn't it? Right. So it's really great just to hear that. And I think it's refreshing to hear that. And of course, you're able to still go out and enjoy yourself, and not have that beer as in, I need to have that beer. It's like, well, I fancy a beer. And then I can leave it. And if I know that I need to watch that. So being vigilant, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. It took me a little bit of
Questioning the motive.
Yeah, a bit of stumbling back a few times with it to kind of learn where my boundaries were.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm like in a happy place.
Yeah, that's good.
With it now. And going back to the very start of the conversation, talking about addiction in terms of like you deal with things in a different way, but overall it is pretty much the same addiction. So would you say all addictions would be just a coping mechanism for something deeper?
Well, I mean, look, I wouldn't even necessarily say to your problem that you were talking about, it was an addiction. You know, you might say that was my coping mechanism. You know, when someone has gone through loss and they drink really heavily, I mean, a heavy drinker doesn't make somebody an alcoholic as such, as the terminology is, right? So I think there's a reason. There's always a reason. Understand the why and the pain. What's the pain? You know, for you, your why was, well, I've had this accident, got nothing else to do. I'm feeling really sorry for myself. I want to change the way that I feel. This is really shit time I'm feeling. This is going to do the job. Beautiful. As a human, I want to feel good all the time. Thank you. And then you know, the pleasure sensor goes, yep, more, yep, more, yep. Change the feeling, change the feeling, change the feeling. And then this becomes something more. You know, the habitual habit that becomes the coping mechanism to not do life, to not do anything. But of course, there was enough in you there to say, look, you know, I want to do life. I want to do other things. So therefore, I need to review my relationship with alcohol. Some people don't have that mindset. Some people have a mindset like I had, which is, well, if I keep doing it more, it might level out. It might work out. It might work out better. You know, just, or bury it. Don't acknowledge it. Know that it's there, but know that it's too hard to comprehend what life without it would be like. You know, and I think when you look at the terminology, it's understanding the why for sure, because everyone's story there's a story, and understand the pain. What are you going through? What's happening for you right now? What are the feelings? You know, which is refreshing to hear two men talk like that, but that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
What is the feelings? And it's something we don't talk enough about. Is what actually, how do you feel? How are you feeling? Like, how are you really feeling? You know, back then I couldn't go into the pub and say to my mates, I'm feeling a bit emotional today, guys. You know, just, you know, but that's probably what I was feeling. You know, I'm feeling really like, I feel I'm to be rejected, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think we are waking up a little bit more into that kind of language and really recognizing that we do all need each other. But I don't think everyone has gone through massive amounts of trauma. And again, like society's view on what trauma is, we go to default of sexual abuse, violence, that kind of thing. But abandonment is traumatizing, you know? So is you looking at attachment issues, relationship with the world, relationship with your family, your parents, or your caregivers, what that's like. These are all the ingredients and set you up for life. So there are some people who believe you're born with it. I mean, I definitely have an addictive personality, for sure. And then there is also the other side where it's the environment. You know, something has happened, you know, to create that. So you might experience trauma then from living on a particular area that you're constantly harassed or something like that, and you find it. I mean, I'm not making sense now. I'm trying to find all sorts of reasons, but what I'm saying is it's never one factor. You have to look at it all. It's a holistic approach. You have to look at the individual, because we're not textbook. We're not all the same. And as you talked about, you know, and there are many people like you who have been through what you've been through, and interpreted it. You know, it's not the event that affects us; it's the interpretation to the event. And so many have interpreted that in a much greater way and gone even further. You know. So it really does depend. I say what defines the addiction is your relationship with the substance or the acting out. It's not the acting out itself.
Yeah, and obviously you speak to
does that make sense?
People. Yeah. So you speak to a lot of people about addiction, like your say clients like who come and see you for addiction,
Yeah.
is there like a big difference in terms of like male, female, in terms of how many there are? Like, is it more male? Is it more female?
It goes in waves. I've seen many females. Like right now, I've got more female clients on my books right now than I have, say, male. And I have more people with, I mean, I see people with all sorts of issues that are going on. And actually right now, there's only maybe one or two that are going for addiction at the moment. I've had a surge of couples at the moment, lots of couples. But I do get a lot of porn addiction as well. I get a lot of porn addiction in men. I only see men for sex and porn addiction.
It's not like, it's been quite like under the radar, I'd say, until recently that has come out. Like I suffered with it badly, where it almost ruined my relationship.
Right.
And it's kind of drilled into you that it's normal to just watch it.
Yeah.
But it's not, like, to like that extent.
It's, I mean, they say on average 11 hours a week constitutes an issue, but I don't know if I buy into that, because I mean, I don't disagree with the facts. I go one further. I just think, you know, remember I said to you, a heavy drinker doesn't make, it's the relationship with it.
Yeah.
So you could be sinking 5 pints a night and just be a heavy drinker, but someone who drinks 5 pints a night could class themselves as an alcoholic, if you like, because it's their relationship with it. Take it away, they're like, I need it. Whereas the heavy drinker's like, well, I'm not working now, so, you know, it's a heavy day at work. I'm going to go enjoy my 5 pints, be left alone. If I don't have it, I'm not going to make everyone suffer and lose my shit. You know, I'm really tired. I'm going home tonight. You know, that's the health. That's a positive relationship with that. So the positive relationship is what you're looking for, really. And so when it isn't, that's when it's a problem.
Yeah, I think
so
the first
porn,
person,
you know, as you said, sorry, go on, I cut you off.
No worries. So I think the first person I actually sort of heard talk about it in the public eye was, I think it was Terry Crews.
Yeah.
I think he was the first person who I'd ever heard speak about it.
Powerful story. He's powerful. He's done some really great interviews. And actually it was a client of mine who told me about him, and made me research his sort of story really and understand him, and they found his material quite useful in his story and what he was explaining. But again, for say sex and porn addiction, yeah, it is porn, yeah, it's used as a positive sexual aid. It can be used as a sexual aid. Like, I don't know, how old are you?
20, wait, I don't know how old I was, 26.
26, right? I can't tell underneath all that hair. I have no idea. So, you know, I'm 43 and we didn't have proper sex education at school, really. I mean, it was embarrassing. You watch the guy put the condom on a cucumber. Number one, no one's got a fucking dick that big in the class. Like, that's just ridiculous. You're going to be doing porn if you're going to be, you know, fucking giant cucumber cock. Like, it's just insane. And it would rip it inevitably, and everyone would be laughing. And it's like, we already know about sex, or we think we know about it before that point. So it was too late. And then we're going the other way where we're introducing it too soon. And I think really what we should be introducing soon is the language, so we understand if anyone is being groomed at a young age and they are saying, you know, for example, you know, my neighbour's touching my sweets, right? That's not going to be useful. They need to know penis. They need to know the language so we understand what's being said, yeah? But I don't think we need to be learning about sex so early. And I think there's still a lot of shame attached to it in the conversation, especially people in the religious community, certain cultural backgrounds. You know, I work with a lot of Christian and Muslim men. Yeah. So what does that mean? Just because they've got religion, they don't know what porn is? Of course they do. Right? We're sexual beings. But what happens is it can cause a real disconnect and a real confusion for them, because those people will be learning how we should conduct ourselves and carry ourselves, but they've also got these desires and sexual desire, and also it's a sin to be exploring that. So I don't know where I am. Am I a good person? Am I not a good person? And I get it, and I really empathize, but it doesn't take away that there's sexual desire, and they don't get that training and that learning. And so porn becomes the teacher. The problem with porn is there's so much of it, and there's a lot of warped shit out there that confuses the teachings. You know, it's not the correct teachings. So therefore, people might feel they get an education out of it, and then really it starts to change. And of course, with porn, it's instant dopamine release. So the chemical reaction in the brain, it changes. And so when it comes to the matters of sex is not meant that way. Dopamine is a slower release. So of course, at that point, I can tell we're in London, by the way. So many beeping, beep, beep, beep. So, London, welcome to London. And it just empties my head when that happens. It's just completely gone. So I'll get it back. So, the whole going down that rabbit hole and finding different varieties. But then also, of course, the more you use it, the more dopamine you need, you build up a tolerance. So now you are probably going to look for more extreme things because you're wanting that payoff. You don't know that's what you're wanting, but you are. And then it can then lead into turning that fantasy into reality. So now then we might be more tempted to go onto a cam site. So we're actually having direct interaction with someone that's now listening to my suggestions. And then we might go on these sites, and then we might actually meet up with a person, and then we might even pay for it, and this kind of things, and it becomes reality. And there's no warning signs for sex and porn addiction until it's too late. It's not like drugs or drink. It's really obvious. And so I've had a lot of clients, as I said, from religious backgrounds, older people, younger people who've been shamed in some way. So they've used porn as a safety. It's all about, remember I said to you earlier on about understanding the story, the why and the pain. Many reasons of why someone uses porn. As a kid, I definitely saw porn from the age of 12, 13. It was VHS then, old German style porn. And then the 10-minute teaser on midnight on Sky. Well, I remember those days, right? So it was naughty, it was, and when we come in a community, it was a bit slapstick and a bit risque, and but that was the harmless, the carry-on-esque moments. It's kind of the okay element. But now it's really hardcore, and in fact, there are women directors now directing porn to try and re-educate and show people that not everyone wants to be choked out and chucked around the room and beaten up and abused. It's just not reality. That's not connection. It's not intimacy. And I don't necessarily think everyone looking at porn is looking for intimacy. I think people could avoid intimacy from that. I think people can be terrified of that. So we can use sex as a way of avoiding intimacy. It just becomes the act. And I fundamentally believe it's our little selves. We're seeking love, but outside comes in the form of sex, right? And so there's many different avenues in. I mean, there's a lot. It's so hard to just give you a very quick answer on this. Cut me off if I'm waffling, but it's just so much to it.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
But usually,
Again, going back to that, with the warped views in it 100% warped my view on women.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And, I was watching porn probably from 15.
Right.
And it wasn't until I went to Australia. So Australia's done me in, you see. It's an upside down country.
Sorry, Australians. Sorry.
But, so I hadn't actually been with a woman. I hadn't been in a relationship until, I think it was maybe 19 when I got my first relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't slept with a woman till 18. And I was so heavily dependent on just watching porn to educate yourself and all right, so this is it, because you've never experienced it in real life. Then one day I was just like, fuck it, right, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna brothel, and that's where I went. The first time I ever slept with a woman was in the brothel with a prostitute, and that isn't the best thing to do, obviously, because that's still not real.
Might not be the best thing to do, but it was your choice that you made to go and be a sex worker. But can you see how, from the age of 15, using porn, you've now got this idea of what it's going to be. That cranks up the anxiety of the actual fear of actually engaging. If we're not then well versed in that kind of talking to a woman, so people can hide in porn. But you've got sexual desires, and now you're getting older, and you're thinking, well, I need to do this, so this is where it's at, and maybe we just need to get this over and done with, and then I'm no longer a virgin, then it's all fine, and then I'll be okay. And was it okay straight away?
After, I was just like, oh, what have I fucking done?
Right.
I was just like, that was a bit silly, wasn't it? And then, there was a lot of regret, guilt.
Right.
After. Went back to my flat, and then literally started sleeping with women the next day. Not just going to pay for it, real people who I'd meet. And from there, it just became I was just a numbers game for me. I was just like, this is great. Let's see how many people I can just get through. And
Right.
yeah,
So you see how the mentality there, that's not really feeding what you want. There's
yeah,
nothing really intimate about that. And that's just continuation. But you got the Dutch courage because you finally lost
yeah.
your virginity as such that you were holding on to. And then it was just a number. So in a way, we were still objectifying women
Yeah.
rather than actually connecting, which is really what we want. You know, there might be some geezers listening, watching, go, wow, man, what are you fucking talking about? It's normal, you know. So you know what I'm saying, I know what you're saying, and that's the point. You know, not everyone thinks like that, but it's how you feel. And really what we want is that connection. So when there are people, say, in this country, we're judging other cultures and how they view, you know, sex and marriage and all this kind of things, we are very liberal and we're very open. And I think it might work to a degree, but it doesn't work for everyone, you know. I too were like you. I had many partners, but it was almost for validation. You know, it was maybe I will be enough. Maybe they'll see me and I'll be validated. Well, that's all wounded little me inside that felt abandoned and felt, you know, less than. And now I'm seeking it in this area. I don't really know what's going on. But actually, really what I want is intimacy.
Yeah.
So seeking it in the wrong place. And when you find it, I don't know about you, but I sabotaged it. Because this is unfamiliar. This is all nice and good. And no. So until you're just on that, we're just figuring it out. And when we're young, we don't know. We don't really know. You know, I think it's amazing. You watch all these Love Island people, right? They don't know. They're just figuring themselves out and it's changed. And when they look back when they're in their 40s, I wonder what they will be saying, you know, about themselves. When I reflect and look at myself from a young age, you're just trying to figure it out. And it's, we can't help where we're born and the community we live in, and we just sort of adapt, you know. And if we were born in a remote place that was very much your first partner you must be married to, you know, I mean, that used to fill me up with fear. And I thought that idea, and I thought, but what if the sex isn't good? That was my default because of where I was brought up, where my thinking was at, right? But very good question. But I go, you know, I just think there's many different routes, many different ways. And for me personally, in the line of work that I do, those that come from religious upbringings, no matter what faith it is, but religious upbringings, I feel for the most because it's very confusing. And it's not to say that their faith is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. It's important to them. It's important to me. But it can be confusing on where they sit. And that's why they can stay in their issue for so much longer, because it's that shame, that guilt. Like, how can I possibly, am I really a good religious person if I've got these thoughts and these desires? We have 40, 50, you know, 65, 75,000 thoughts a day. You can't control all your thoughts, you know. But what you're focusing on, you know, is, and what you're being exposed to. So they come and see someone like me to sort of be able to forgive themselves around that and to sort of be normalized that actually you are human. Forget what faith you have, and, you know, you are a human being and you all have you can all have sexual desire. It's normal. It's how you navigate around that and what is it you're really looking for. You know, I've had someone who once, a long time ago, who doesn't believe in sex before marriage, but found themselves watching porn because actually they're really horny and they're looking for the partner and they really want to get married and they can't find the right person, you know. So everyone's routing is different, but it doesn't help the access that we have to it. Just like, say, social media or your phone, right? There's a terminology for that around that type of addiction, but it doesn't mean everyone's got that problem. But most people would be able to identify and say, how many times you sat there with one eye open at night doing that? How many times? Loads of times. But when is that happening? Because it's there. So it's the opportunity is there. But what's going on for you? I'm wired. I'm stressed. I'm not relaxed. I'm not calm. There's other stuff going on for me right now. This is a good distraction. And then it becomes a coping mechanism. And then it becomes the expectant, the habit. And then all of a sudden we're in it. You know, the addiction element comes when you're obsessed with it so much so that without it, it all falls to shit. That's how you know when you've got the problem. Take it away. How are you doing? You know, like my little one, she'll play with her iPad. But if she goes to stay at her nan and granddad's, there's no iPad whatsoever, and she might be there for a whole week. Do we get tantrums? No. Does she have any kind of emotional breakdown? No. Because it's a healthy relationship and she adapts and learns and understands it. If that was me with no drugs, what do you mean? There's nothing on holiday. What do you mean? You know, couldn't hold it. So it becomes that problem. going off on major tangents, but I think
I love it. I love it. And,
think I
and do
understand where I'm going.
you find that with people who have been incredibly restricted, it's the same? So they have like their whole childhood, they say they were never allowed to touch alcohol.
Yeah.
And then turn 18, you can buy alcohol, and then bam, it's just everywhere.
well, listen to your story.
Yeah.
What you said at 19. So some might consider that quite late. Some might consider that about the right time. You interpreted it as this was too late. So therefore, I'm going to make up for lost time. And now,
Yeah.
boom, off I go. Because then I'll feel validated. Then I'll feel, yeah, I've caught up. I've caught up with the masses. I'm all right now. Now I can find the one. Oh shit, I'm really in it. You know, and it's getting in the way of finding the one that might have already been in front of me the whole time.
Yeah, do you know what? Mine was quite bad. So obviously I went into my first relationship at 19 after I got back from Australia, and then it turned into like quite an abusive relationship.
From her part.
Emotionally. And it was not fun. And that kind of set me off on my first touch with depression.
Yep. So that reinforces, how do I get out of this? I don't really necessarily know what I need, how to communicate that. You know, and I've been hiding away from it for so long and watching women so long. Now I'm in a relationship, I can't really manage it or don't know how to communicate that this is not okay. And it just takes a knock at you, a chip, another little chip, and then you just put up with it until you can't. Because shh, quiet, say nothing, and it might get better and doesn't get better. And actually it's you. You know, it's finding your voice to say, actually, that ain't all right. That's not okay. Whether we're male or female, it doesn't matter. You know? And then recognizing that you want better for yourself, want more for yourself. And I guess you're probably in quite a confused place anyway.
Yeah.
So that kind of just...
Yeah, it was very much like, like you kind of, that feeling of like, you don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
So then that like hooks you in there. So you're getting shit and you're like, but you know, I could be worse, could be alone.
Yep.
And
so you ignore the flags because the payoff is love.
Yeah.
Quite common.
But you think it is. You think it's love. And
you think it's not. Right. Yeah.
And it's not. It's like control and yeah. But then the thing is like, so after I got out of that relationship after just over a year, and it sucked. And then I think I spent a year just nothing. Just me being me, like it's working on myself. And then it's all kicked off again. Just like, all right, I'm going to see how many women I can sleep with again. And it was not good. And then I met my current girlfriend, Rowan, who I've been with for 3 years, just over, who you met downstairs.
Lovely lady.
And yeah, no, she's awesome. And
takes no shit, I can imagine.
Yeah. And it's a good, we met each other at the right time in our lives.
Lovely.
Like, I wasn't like descending into chaos, and she was coming up out of shit. And we just met at the right time, and
energies were aligned.
Yeah, we complement each other very well, and sort of help each other through the shit. But again, it's just meeting people at the right time. We're going right back to the beginning. Like, people were here for a minute, people were here for half your life, your whole life.
Yeah,
it's just making the most out of those times where the people come.
I totally agree, and I think a lot of things you were just saying there is pointing towards low self-worth, low self-esteem. And it just highlights it more, doesn't it? Just highlights it more. So working on self was really good. I did the same. You know, I didn't have a relationship for 2 years, didn't have sex for 1 year. So I didn't get into a relationship, you know, because I'd be in a relationship and think, yeah, this is the one. And then it wasn't the one. And then I felt like an arsehole, you know. So I was advised, you know, maybe don't be in a proper committed relationship for a while. So that became 2 years. And then, but I was still having, you know, flings or, you know, going down that road. And so I didn't have sex in for a year. And I'm not saying everyone should do that, but it worked for me. I needed it. I learned to heal a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of stuff, work on myself, learn what I really want. And then I kid you not, New Year's Eve, sitting with my mate in Thailand, crying. Well, I'm going to meet someone. I've been working on myself. You know, I was getting all in that one. He said, look, listen, man, when you're ready, yeah, it's going to come. Like, it's there, it's coming. Like, you've done so much work on yourself. You are more mature and ready to commit. Like, it's going to be bless up. Don't worry about it. I swear to God, the next day I met my wife, who's my wife now. And I met her the next day. And she's all the way from Siberia, from Russia, my wife, right? So that was quite good because she couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak Russian. So communication's only 5%. And, you know, she's a British citizen now. We've been married 12 years and she works with kids in the school, like one-to-one, SEND teaching assistant, and she's studying to be a therapist. And we've got a 9-year-old daughter, and I just think we found out each other at the right time. You know, same sort of things in terms of what was in alignment. And I think it's to do with energy, what we're putting out there. while I was putting out what my motives were, I was putting out, I was attracting that energy, man, 100%. Or I might give this false facade of what I'm about and I'll attract the nice person, but then sabotage the relationship. So it's nice I haven't got to do that anymore, man. It's so nice I haven't got to do that anymore. I'm more authentic. I'm more myself. I don't like small talk. I realize as I get older, I can't stand small talk. I just cut the shit. Let's just be honest and be real. If you don't like someone, you don't like someone. If you do, you do. But let's find out, have a conversation, but not the small talky stuff, the surface level.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that kind of. So
it's kind of like that manifestation stuff, isn't it? Really, like what 100%. You're putting out, what you're thinking is going to come around to you.
That's what you're putting out there. What you're focusing on. Remember, is this what the reticular activating system is for? As Rob Icy probably talked about when he was on here. And that's exactly it. If you wake up in the morning, I'm not loved, I'm not loved, I'm not loved, I'm not loved. You're going to look for all information all day. Your brain's sifting through billions of bits of data, looking for that. The neighbour ignored you. She didn't give you a kiss goodbye. The boss doesn't seem happy today. Mum didn't pick up the phone. I'm not loved, I'm not loved, I'm not loved. You're looking for that information. So the brain's focusing on that, So what you think about, you become. What you become, you think about the most. Really, 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 truly, oldest proverb in the world. So, so, so true. So rather than me thinking, I'm an addict, I'm free. I change it around. I needed those terminologies in the early days. I don't wear that so much these days. What I actually say is I'm free. I really am free from any mind or substance to change the way I feel. I'm free from that. I'm no longer in that bondage of self. I can actually go out and make choices and decisions and rational ones because I'm not in limited beliefs. I've got limitless beliefs. So I'm open and I'm going to smashing the front doors down and we go out and do it. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's starting your morning right, which is the
start your day on
thing.
purpose, my friend.
It's like, for me, running a business is very stressful, especially with the industry. It is incredibly stressful, managing multiple people. And if I don't start, like, sometimes I start the morning like, right, what's going to go wrong today? Shit will go wrong. And I have to start the morning like, it's going to be a great day. And if something goes wrong, I'm in a much better place to deal with whatever that situation is. Yep. Compared to if I'm waking up, oh fuck,
The event is your interpretation to the event. Shit's always going to happen, right? But if you're focusing on the negative outcome, I mean, look, positive and negative is a thing, but it's really about getting emotional intelligence in prior to the event. Really, for example, I say to you, I'm going to fail my exam on Friday, and you say, well, that's not very positive, Tan. You need to be positive. I go, I'm positively sure I'm going to fail my exam on Friday, right? So we know that it's not about being positive and negative. You might be saying, well, what's it going to do for you if you do pass that exam? And now I start getting creative and telling you, well, it means I can get that other job. And what's that going to do for you? It means I can take my wife away and my kids, and we're going to do this. And now I'm sort of feeling and creating and imagining that is happening, that I've got more chance if I keep doing that. I've got more chance of actually focusing and settling and doing everything in my power to achieve that goal. I don't believe that manifestation means that just the world goes, here, have that. Otherwise, if that's the case, why are there starving people in the world? The most happiest people in the world, and their parents are dying of AIDS and they're starving. I don't think, you don't think that they deserve that? What they're putting out to the universe, and the universe goes, not going to reward you. So no, I don't believe that. I believe it's the signs are around us all the time. For example, I'm walking down a shopping mall and I might see someone, I think, oh, I'm not going to say hello to that person. I avoid them because I'm in my gear or something's going, my mindset's off. But actually, it's that sliding doors moment. What happens if I was in a good mindset and said hello to that person? All of a sudden, we've had a really good conversation. They've got great value out of it. Something else has come out of it and we're off into another trajectory. You just don't know. I'm not saying you're going to get something from those every time, but you just never know. These things are around us all the time. And if your mindset is in that right place, you'll see those signs to help you achieve the goals that you want. And it's a two-step process. I mean, I don't want to repeat what Rob said. I learned a lot from him, but it is that two-step process in terms of the visualization. They went through it together?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even going to bother talking about it. But, it's so true. And it makes sense. It's science. Doesn't it make a lot of sense?
Yeah, it's like you're walking through the world with one eye closed.
Yeah.
And then you open your other eye and everything that you've been looking for is literally right there.
Yeah.
But it's a lot, like, again, like for the phones, like walking down your head, it's like you're not going to see everything around you.
That's right. You're not present. All these things are there to distract you. And the way I say it is like so anyone who's watching or listening, right? So next time you're driving down the road, do a test. Number one, drive down the road and say, look at all these fucking arseholes on the road. No? And you watch how many arseholes are on that road. You'll see them all. Because you're putting that into your focus. If you don't believe us, put it into practice. And the next time we go on a drive, just say, how nice and considerate everybody are. What a lovely drive. Right? Really imagine that it's going to be a lovely drive. You've got to picture it, see it, create it inside your mind, think it, feel it, you can taste it, all of that stuff, right? And then really acknowledge it. Look how lovely everyone's driving. I guarantee you'll have a completely different experience. So, but those cars are on the road regardless. The arseholes are there, the nice people are there, they're all there. But it's whatever you're focusing on. It's that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is very much that. You know, when I was drinking, and I stopped drinking, I remember seeing the world and like, oh, the sun's shining, the birds are singing. It's like, bruv, they've always been there. You just so tunnel visioned, you know? And it was like, fucking hell, the birds are singing. I just got in, shut up. You know, but now it's like, oh, the birds are singing. It's a wonderful day. And you're out there in the garden just loving it. So mindset, isn't it? Mindset all the time and what you focus on. It's very powerful.
And I think to wrap up, the clients that come and see you, mainly whatever addiction they're sort of struggling with, how do you go around sort of approaching that with them? Is there like a step-by-step plan that they then follow? Is there like a set time limit? Like it's this many sessions and you should be all good?
It's a question that gets asked and I never say that you should be at this point, because if it don't get there at that point, you've instantly put them into shame. So I always say, look, you're an individual. Your story is your story. What I always say to every client is I say, look, all I ask is that you bring yourself and bring it, because you can talk shit to yourself for free in the mirror. So when you come with me, let's bring it, because I want to help you, help yourself. They've got to be their own scientist. I'm going to tell you the answer. I might know the answer, might not, but we'll figure it out together. My job is to hold the mirror up and say, this is what you're saying is useful. This is what you're saying isn't useful. Or this is what you're saying about yourself. Which do you want to keep? What do you want to change? You know, what do you want to navigate through? What do you want to work on? And we work on it together. And sometimes it's a step backwards, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. But when people follow the suggestions and really feel that they're able to open up and connect those dots and then have those impactful feelings removed, they move forward. So there is no time limit. You know, I have short-term clients, I've had longer-term clients. It's really working where they're at, not where I want them to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I love doing what I do. It's like, it's not about where I think you should be. It's like, well, where do you want to be? Because I'm not qualified to comment on someone how they live their life. No one is. You know, how dare they? You know, you're the one who's telling me what's useful and what's not useful. I might help you along the way and say, well, it doesn't sound very positive to me, or it doesn't sound like you're enjoying that part of your life. That's okay. But I can't directly say you shouldn't be doing this. You should leave your wife. You should leave your husband. Hell no. It's not my place to say that. So it's gentle. It's very person-centered, but directive. You know, what do you want to do about it? And how can we achieve it? You know, and I speak like this, you know, on myself. When I trained, it was very much, you know, I'm sensing it's very difficult for you because you have to learn all these fucking skills, right? So it's like driving a car. As soon as you pass your test, you're not doing a push-pull method, you're whipping it round. You're whipping it round. So it's kind of like that, really. And I just found my voice and how I am. And that's why people come to see me, I guess. And it's a pleasure. And as a result, I get to see people from all over the world. Different countries. Zoom has been brilliant for that, and people in the public eye I work with, you know, and sports, athletes, you know, homeowners, people who are kind of really struggling with their mental health, people who are married. There is literally everyone and anyone that needs it, because we all need help, no matter what we do. Our job doesn't define who we are as a person. Every single one of us that's navigating in this world is going to run into some problems. We all have issues. None of us are free of issues. And all therapists are mad. And if you didn't know that, it's true. We're mad. We're all of us mad. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, mate. Really love to see you.